Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let's make sure we've got everyone in the room. All right, I see Miss Dana is joining us all the way from Haymarket. Woohoo! I've got a extra love affair with Haymarket right now just because one of our properties is out there. Let's see, Lisa, Sandy, and an extra Zoom user that I'm not sure who they are, but just want to say, guys, thank you for joining today. We're going to be talking about buy and hold. So, um, we're going to be pretty much discussing rental properties and how to invest in them, the things to look out for, pretty much anything that has to do with buy and hold. So, for those of you that are that tapped into the webinar tonight, go ahead in the chat box. Let me know if you guys are what type of background are you coming from? Are you a realtor? Are you a buy and hold investor? Do you flip houses? Um, do you wholesale? Or if it's none of the above, I definitely want to know, like, what is it that you are going to get into? What is it that you want to get into? Um, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm super excited about tonight's topic just because we have actually we've done a lot of types of investments. We've done pretty much properties that we acquire through seller financing, through rent to own, through hard money. We'll purchase property to flip. But most recently, pretty much last year, we did a lot of flips, and we're like, oh my gosh, in order for me to in order to make money with flips, or even when it comes to servicing buyers and sellers and other investors, like I have to sell a house next month, right? If I don't have another client, or if I don't have another house to flip, then I definitely I don't have income next month. And that's a beautiful thing about what we're going to talk about today is this is basically an investment strategy that gets, that produces income regardless of what you're doing, regardless of your activity every single month, right? This is something that you kind of set it up and then you get paid every single month. It's passive income, right? So those of you that are joining us, let's see, realtor. Okay, we've got a realtor. I'm a realtor, but I love to move into the real estate development game. Awesome. Love to flip, love to wholesale too. Dana, realtor. Awesome, awesome. Okay, good to know, guys. So let's get started. I'm gonna pretty much jump back and forth between the screen because haven't I haven't actually been able to learn how to share, face and screen and all that stuff at the same time. So, but guys, in the chat box, just stop me at any time. Okay. That way, if you have questions, I want to just be there to answer all your questions, whether it's coming from a realtor's perspective or whether it's coming from the investor perspective as well. All right. So let's get started. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Stop one. All right, here we go. So before we get started, guys, like right before I jump into the entire presentation, what questions do you have? Because tonight we're talking about buy and holds, rental properties. Like, if there are any questions that have been lingering about investing in real estate or investing in rental properties specifically, what questions do you have? I'd love to know. I love to know. And I'm gonna keep the chat box. If I look this way, it's because my chat box is over there. So any specific questions that you have, just let me know. Let's take a look. Questions. Where is this popping up? Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to see. I know that you put there it is, Q&A. There you go. How much money is required to get started? Ooh, that's a good one. Would you believe it if I said, um, would you believe it if I said that I bought a rental property, and in kind of in this area, a little bit further out, but at the end of the day, I only put $10,000 into it. I don't know if you just let me know. Just comment in the chat. Let me know if you believe that. And if you want, I'll go into those details on how we actually were able to accomplish that. So so let's see how much money's so we'll talk about that. We'll get into like the loan considerations when you're looking at actually purchasing a property. Oh, yeah, I'll definitely, once we get into that, I'll kind of share how we did that. But have you ever heard of the Burr strategy? So if you've heard of the Burr strategy, that's how I got into 10,000. I got into a rental property with $10,000. So let's see, I've begun to set aside money for from my commissions, but I'm not sure how much I'll need. Yes. Okay. So Sandy's basically saying, all right, I want to know how much it takes to purchase a rental property, to purchase my first real estate investment as a long-term buy and hold. And basically, how do I leverage my realtor game, my retail sales, and then throw this into the investing side and start building wealth that way? So we're going to definitely talk about that. And again, guys, Lisa says, I'm planning to buy my first investment property this year, interested in buying holds, any books, all that stuff, definitely. I'll show you guys a couple of resources as we go through this. So all right, let's get started. Thanks so much, guys, for participating. It means the world to me because typically Fabian, my husband, does these with me, and I can at least talk to him. But he's actually at one of our buy and holds because we needed to install a hot tub. So, all right, let's get started. So we're going to talk about these. The buy and hold game. I'm going to go ahead and click present. All right. So really quickly, guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. Fabian and I, my husband Fabian, we have a real estate team out of the Alexandria area. We've got a lot of like exciting stuff coming up too, because Crown Homes is basically merging with another top team in our office to really just get to the next level. So that's kind of a really cool thing that's happening on that side. And that's going to allow us to service investor clients, buyer clients, and sellers a little bit better with when it comes along the lines to building wealth, right? We also invest in real estate. We purchase property in just about any kind of way. Let me actually go to the next slide because this kind of talks about us. So we actively have a wholesaling company. So for those of you that are on, do you guys, who here knows what wholesaling is? So for those of you that are participating, who can just shoot me a definition in the chat box if you know what wholesaling is, because that's another amazing tool in your tool belt, another investment strategy that you can have. We've purchased property to renovate it and sell. We have also house hacked. That was actually our very first property we purchased. We house hacked. We've acquired property through seller financing. We've acquired property and done the Burr strategy, which is basically buy, rehab, rent out, and refinance, right? So basically you're purchasing a property, you're renovating it, and then once you've renovated it, you're going to rent it out. And then once you've rented it out, then you're going to go to the bank and you're going to basically say, I want to refinance this, pull all my money back out and do this on the next, just repeat, do it again on another property. We've done rent to owns to purchase property as well, which is pretty neat scenarios. And we're also most recently jumping into short-term rentals. Our real estate goals are to hit $10,000 a month in passive income. That basically means mailbox money. Like I do not have to do anything. And this money just pretty much shows up in the mailbox every single month. With the efforts that we have made since January of this year, we're almost doubling that. We've got a couple properties that are being renovated, and that's probably going to hit not just quite double, but close to double by the end of the year, which is super, super exciting because what you focus on expands. And that's pretty much starting January, we started focusing on passive income. And we want to increase our net worth to 2.4 million. That's basically because that number comes from the 4% rule. Do any of you guys know what the 4% rule is? It's a retirement like strategy, or it's kind of like a formula for retirement. So Sandy, for wholesaling definition, Sandy basically said you're the middleman slash woman, putting a seller and buyer together while getting a fee in between. Absolutely, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly what wholesaling is. Wholesaling is basically me saying to a seller, hey, I'll give you this much for that property. And then you go under contract and you assign your rights as the buyer in a contract over to the end investor, who is probably a flipper or is probably an investor that wants to buy and hold for a assignment fee. So you could say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'll give you 150, and then you get that under contract, and then you can go to the end investor and say, hey, I've got a deal for you at 155. And then you make the difference and what's in between as the assignment fee. So that's a little bit about us. We actually just launched an entire business that's called My Virtual Assist, and they're pretty much, we're niching down to ISAs for real estate investors like yourself, and realtors as well that are looking to really just supercharge their business, get more appointments, and get more consistency when it comes to closings. So basically, you're hiring someone that's full-time, making phone calls for you for 8 hours a day so that you don't have to. And that's been one of the most exciting things about what's been going on in our life the last month. We actually just recently took a trip down to Honduras because the call center is located out in Honduras. And this is actually at the very bottom here, a picture of the call center that we launched literally 2 weeks ago. So super, super exciting. Let me do a quick check just to see. Okay, awesome. So with that being said, I'm going to skip forward. Any of you guys that are logged into today's session, if you don't mind just giving me like a quick intro about yourself, I'd love to know like what your goals are for this year. I truly, truly believe in just always talking about what it is that you're looking for to accomplish, because you just never know who may have that next deal for you, or could help you out or have that next connection for you. So definitely let me know what it is that you're looking to accomplish this year when it comes to real estate investing, or even in your existing business. I want to dig deep, and if any of you guys are open to connecting over coffee, let's set it up. So this is the slide that basically says everything that we're talking about today. As you go through your own investments, obviously consult with your team, your power team, your dream team, whether it is attorney, title, whether it's setting up your business entity, whether it's getting a deal, right? And then analyzing. Just because it comes from me or just because it comes from Grid, it doesn't mean you shouldn't double check everything. Definitely just, consult with those that you need to consult with. So let's get into it. Let's see. Sandy loves to connect over coffee. Awesome. Let's set that up for next week. My Wednesday is actually pretty open right now. So what is a buy and hold? So buy and hold refers to a property that you purchase with the intent of owning for a long period of time, versus a flipper rehab, which investors typically will hold for 6 to 12 months or less, otherwise known as an income property or rental property. The considerations for buy and hold properties are different from those of a fix and flip, but we have several issues that are pretty much the same, right? So a couple things that I'd love for you to think about with the buy and holds is give me 1 second here. Oops, did not mean to do that. Oops, sorry guys, completely lost my slides here. So let's see real quick. Would love to meet for coffee, pick your brain, use my profits from real estate transaction and invest to get into buy and holds. So real quick, I was over here talking about the considerations, like a couple things that we have to kind of consider as we're analyzing what type of investment I want to do. So for those of you, like for the person that just said, all right, look, I just sold a property, I've got cash sitting, here. What should I invest in, right? So, and everyone's investing style is a little bit different. So for the traditional investor, all right, you're typically going to need around 20% to purchase a property through a traditional conventional loan. Okay, so you got to think about, okay, do I have that 20% to throw into the next property, right? What's your long-term strategy for real estate investing? Are you looking to throw park money somewhere? Like sometimes, you're sitting on a bunch of cash and it's sitting in your bank account and you're basically like, it's not earning anything there. I could actually throw this into a physical real estate asset and it could just sit there and I'm okay if it breaks even. Because I've actually had investor clients that are like, I just want something in Northern Virginia. And I don't care if it doesn't cash flow. I'm okay if it breaks even, but they just want to put their money somewhere where it's super secure and they know that, hey, if it's not going to lose value here, right? So it's all about what your long-term strategy is. For me, I want to jump into a property with the least amount of cash as possible with the highest cash flow. If I can't do that, then I don't really want to get into that property. Maybe later on, a couple years from now, when I just have a lot of cash, I can consider, less riskier stuff. But that's the other question. Like, what is your tolerance for risk? A lot of people take a look at my husband and I and the way that we invest in real estate, and they think it's super, super, super risky, right? Basically, they're thinking, when it comes to purchasing a property, we buy properties that need a lot of work, right? We buy properties that are in distressed seller situations. So what we also do sometimes is we'll try to purchase a property without any of our own money. So we like to finance the part that basically that's the entry, the cash to close or the down payment. And we like to get a loan for 75, 80% of that property as well. And we like to borrow the money in order to renovate the property. So it's like super high leverage type of investment strategy, which for most people, that's like high risk. For us, it's actually low risk because it's not any of our money. And everything that is invested is tied to that physical asset. So the other thing is too, is like, what's your tolerance for dealing with rehabs and contractors? And what about tenants, like getting those phone calls late at night? What about like buyers? And what about dealing with realtors? Like, that's also a whole other element. So if for those of you that joined today, like go ahead and post in the chat box, like, would you say that you are a low risk investor or a high risk investor? And when you're taking a look at a deal, would you say that you are looking at a rental property deal for cash flow, or are you looking at a long-term play for future appreciation? Which would you prefer? Go ahead and post that in the chat box. So just checking high risk, with cash flow. Awesome. Awesome. High risk with cash flow. That's good. We've got Anthony. Anthony, thanks for joining. Ashley. I'm so glad you jumped on today. All right. Sandy says she's low risk right now, but I'm ready to move into higher risk. I like rental properties for long term with cash flow. All right. Let's see here. Suk, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Apologize if I'm not. High risk with cash flow. Okay. Low risk with cash flow. That's super. That low risk, high risk can mean different things. It can mean different locations, right? Some people may consider certain areas, maybe lower income areas or something like that, higher risk. Some people may consider how much is leveraged, higher risk, right? So low risk with cash flow, low risk with cash flow. So it's really cool. And another thing that I want to just throw out there, because I don't know everyone's situation, everyone that's actually chatting right now, but those of you that are high risk, right? It's very interesting to see sometimes people that are willing to take high risk is because they already have like multiple streams of income, or there's something on in their life where they're able to risk it all and it's like do or die and I'm going to make this happen. Others that are low risk are kind of people that are just starting out, or are very like job and employer, like they're happy with moving up the ladder of command or whatever, the chain of command, and they just want to invest on the side, right? So it's kind of like really interesting to see everyone's comments here. So again, stop me guys if you have any questions. Okay, so all right, let's see here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. All right, so moving on to the next, oops, hold on, guys. Moving on to the next slide. Another couple of considerations. What location are you looking to do buy and holds, right? Some people are like, all right, I got to stick in my area where I can pretty much hit up properties in a matter of 30 minutes or an hour just in case anything happens. Some people are like, all right, how long do I even want to keep this property? Is this a property that I want to invest in just until Amazon comes in, or just rent it out for a couple of years? Or are some people are you looking at this next investment like, all right, let me just throw some money in here, park it, and just have someone completely pay down this property, right? What about managing the property? That's another like kind of scary part. Like, are you going to hire somebody? Are you going to be taking those late calls at midnight because the toilet's leaking? Or do you want to hire that out, right? What rate of return are you going to get from this property compared to your other investments? And what rate of appreciation do you expect? So when we first started out with the real estate investing, we took this crazy course. It was so expensive. I can't believe that we actually like ran our credit cards for this real estate boot camp. But the one thing that I took away that I think is like crucially valuable was that anytime you invest in a property, it has to make sense when you buy. Like you make the money on the purchase, right? And anything that happens when it comes to value over a long term is just a bonus. So what I mean is I'm going to analyze a deal and I want to make a profit. I want to know that I want to make 30K, 50K, whatever it is. The moment that I buy it, right? Once I rehab it and know how much it'll sell for later. And if for any reason I decide to keep it and it happens to appreciate 3% over the next 5 years, 5%, or even like 15% over the next 5 years, the appreciation is always a bonus. You should never be purchasing a property on what you think it'll appreciate for, because we have no idea what the market's going to do. So that's something that's like huge, 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 huge. so yeah, so anyways, lost my slides again. All right, here we go. So when it comes to the renovation process, right? Um, it's very different. Oops, let me just make sure I'm sharing the screen. I bet you I'm not even sharing the screen. Okay, there you are. So when it comes to renovation properties, it's actually completely different than when it comes to renovating rental properties, is completely different than a regular buy and hold. Okay, so what I mean by that is when you're renovating a property to keep it and stick someone in there for long term, we're not going to do the same type of design and material choice that we are if we're going to flip it, right? If we're flipping it, it's because we want to maximize value. It's because we want this property to sell at the highest price point, and so we're going to put the sexiest of the fixtures. We're going to put like something that looks super good for a dream kitchen. We're going to put stainless steel appliances. We're going to put the most beautiful floor ever because we know that that's going to directly impact value. When it comes to rental properties, it's completely different. With rental properties, what we want to do is tenant proof the property. Okay, so can anyone guess in the chat, what the heck do I mean by tenant proofing the property? And this is actually something, this is like a conversation that that's hard because most of the time as investors, we want to buy something and then we take a look at the property and we're like, well, I wouldn't live here, or maybe I would live here, but maybe you're thinking, okay, I'll live here we if it had nice appliances, right? So you start like putting yourself into the picture, and that's like the worst thing that you can do, right? So by tenant proofing the property, what I mean is you're going to actually select materials that will last a couple transitions, a couple turnovers. So instead of putting like the really nice laminate flooring that, it's more than $4 a square foot, we're going to put that scratch proof, waterproof, resistant flooring, or we're going to put in tile because we know no matter how many dogs come in this property, they're not going to mess up the tile, right? So that's an example. We might switch appliances for like kind appliances, meaning we're not going to throw in like state of the art, super high end kitchen appliances, right? What we might do is still throw in stainless steel appliances, but not super high, I guess I don't even know the luxury brands, but whatever, Samsung, LG, whatever's more luxury than that, right? So what we'll end up doing is putting in materials that we know are going to last a long time. And then just always budget, basically, always budget for that turnover. So that's what I mean by tenant proofing. And when it comes to the renovation, those are the decisions that you have to be making. And that's kind of like the mindset you should have. Not gonna, go crazy with design here. I just want to pick materials that I know are gonna last a couple turnovers, right? So every time you have a turnover, end of that 12 months or 24 months, every time you have a turnover, you still have to go in and reinvest and repaint, retouch up, maybe clean carpets. And if you don't have a lot of cash flow, if you have $100 cash flow, 150, 200, and you have to go and actually paint a couple rooms or change carpets or clean carpets at the end of the turnover, you're actually not making any money at all, right? So if you were to make the investment and put in tile or something that lasts a longer time, you don't have that cost every single month. So yeah, so let's see, avoiding those problem tenants. Do any of you guys have questions so far? I know that I'm like kind of babbling on right now, so let me know if you guys have any questions, okay? Um, let's see, what's it looking like? Sorry, guys, I can't tell if I'm sharing my entire screen or if I'm just sharing the slides right now. Those of you that can see it on the other end, what are you guys seeing? It's only me. Okay, cool. All right, thanks for your help. Let me see if I can pull this up one more time. Sorry, guys. So I'm gonna jump into for any of you guys have recently bought a buy and hold this year or any other investment this year, just go ahead and put that in the chat box for me. I'm just curious what kind of investors we have in here. Sorry, guys. I'm a lot better at this when Fabian's around. All right, cool. Share this screen. All right, there we go. Woo! All right, moving forward, I'll kind of go through these a little bit further. So, here's a property that we actually started just probably a couple of days ago. We bought it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, but this is a property that we painted it all black and it looks rough right now, but we're going to be adding a lot of lighting and we're going to be adding a lot of natural wood color. If you take a look, you guys see kind of like the picture in the background right here. That's a black cabin and it has a lot of like light wood accents. So we're going to be doing that to this property. These posts are going to be like natural wood color. The door is going to change. And this area down here is going to be pretty much a hot tub area. So this property is one of our most recent buy and holds that we're going to be actually doing a short-term rental on. We're going to be holding this long term. So the only thing that's actually been done to it it's been basically the paint outside. We actually just started demo on the inside like this week. So again, when it comes to renovating these buy and hold properties, we just want to fix what's broken. Once we purchase the property, reuse appliances here. This would be an instance where you would go and find absolutely good condition working appliances on the resale market like Craigslist or Facebook. Carpet, vinyl, and most room, laminate countertops. The laminate countertops though, I'd be careful in what area that you're putting that into. You can't do that when it comes to like Northern Virginia, but you can do that like in other markets. Let's see. Only exception is if the place needs full reno anyway, which is such a good comment because like when we purchased a property out in Bryan's Road, it actually was a full gut job. Like it had water issues and everything. And we renovated it because we weren't sure at the time if we were going to renovate to sell or renovate to hold it. But throughout the renovation, we actually ended up finding a renter that was willing to pay what we wanted. And we ended up using kind of like a little bit higher end renovation in order to collect a lot more in fair market rent. I think we ended up renting out the property like $200 higher than fair market rent. So yeah, is right now a good time to buy? Is right now a good time to do buy and holds? So for us, that was such a good question because for us, we purchase property in any market. Now, don't get me wrong, we have purchased property, we've purchased less property during this crazy market. I like to call it like basically post-COVID market because there's just been this crazy impact of low inventory and super high demand in buyers. So as long as you're following your criteria, okay, which is pretty much, I'll do the quick formula. It's ARV after repair value minus all of your costs of acquiring and selling the property, minus the renovation, minus commissions, right? Minus hard money costs. If you're still making a good profit on that, if you still have, if you're going to keep it as a buy and hold, it's obviously, it doesn't turn into profit. It stays in the property as equity. But if it's still hitting those numbers, absolutely. I don't care what's happening with the market because I'm buying right. Does that make sense? So as long as you know how to calculate and analyze a deal, you can buy in any market. Now, when it's a crazy market like this, things change. I used to be able to buy properties on the MLS, and I cannot find a deal on the MLS. If you're an investor right now looking for a property on the MLS, you got to be ready to compete. And by the time that you bid on it, it might not be the best value, right? Now, this applies to our area, like the DMV, Metro, Northern Virginia area. Obviously, if you tap into different states, different markets, everything ends up changing. So, so let's see. Sandy, I have a condo that I bought 20 years ago, and you're living off the rent today? That's insane. That's amazing, actually. Like that's pretty cool. So let's see. Is carpet a good idea with buy and holds? It's such a good question. And it depends. So there is one of my neighbors is a realtor, and it was really funny because one time she was like in there and she was like, she had her working clothes on and was pulling out carpet out of the house, like a big roll with the padding. And I went over and I was like, hey, have you ever thought about selling? Not knowing she was a realtor, right? And she just kind of hit me real quick with, I'm actually a realtor and I'm just renting the property, right? So what's funny is that she rented it right after that to a tenant that had two dogs. And then a year later, I saw her in the property again, replacing the carpet. She was actually replacing, like not even washing them. So I think that carpets is not a good idea if you're renting a property that is pet friendly. If it's not pet friendly, then yes, I think it's okay to put carpets in. Now, if you're not allowing pets, you're actually diminishing that pool of renters a lot, because I would say probably like 50% of renters, 60% of renters have pets and are looking for a place with pets. So yeah, so what about short-term rentals? Do you set higher standards for those? Absolutely. So the question is like, what kind of renovation are you doing for short-term rentals? I think that that's what the question is. And the answer is absolutely yes. Short-term rentals is a very different ball game than long-term, like 12-month lease, right? With short-term rentals, people are staying at your property for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 5 nights, probably, and they are going there for the experience. Now, if you're in an area like, and you have a short-term rental that's next to like a conference, right? Or a conference center, or like a arena, or something like that, right? You might not have to spend so much. It could be like a basic remodel, but if it's like a vacation area, absolutely, it's worth making that place extra. And like you said, Insta worthy, something that they can post on Instagram and it's trending and it's like, wow, this is so pretty, or this is so different, or I love this design. I'm so guilty of that. Like I'll take a look at Airbnbs, I'll take a look at VRBOs, and my first preference is the property that looks like, wow, I would love to take a look at the design. And, I feel like this is luxury, or I feel like this is completely a different experience than my own normal home. So absolutely, it's definitely worth it. And then Semi is basically saying in the questions section, so where do we even find deals, right? So when it comes to investing in real estate, period, you have to become resourceful and figure out how to find properties off market. So there's many different approaches, and we're kind of getting a little bit off topic, but a couple of different things that you can do when it comes to finding deals is basically looking for properties that there's motivated sellers or it's off market. You could purchase property through wholesalers, you could purchase property through auction, you could purchase property through Craigslist, you could purchase property through door knocking, you can purchase property through cold calling and purchasing list of high equity properties, out of state owners, vacant properties, like all of that stuff. But basically, you have to go out there and find the property. So that's basically what we're looking at when it comes to finding these deals. All right, so let me jump back into the presentation. You guys can look at my crazy screen here. So another thing to really consider when it comes to buy and hold, it's a little bit different. It's other costs that we have to consider is property management, right? So what will end up happening is if you get to a point where you have multiple properties and you can't keep up with managing the properties yourself, you can eventually hire out a property manager. Sometimes people just go straight to that step, right? They're like, heck no, I don't want to be in direct communication with that tenant because I know if they ask for a break, I'll give it to them, right? I know that they'll sweet talk me into not paying rent, and I don't want to have to be in that situation, right? Or you're just out of state and you can't keep up with the property if there was some hiccup that came along. So the way that property management works is that they're the ones that go in and they actually fill the property. They'll list it actively on the market. They'll basically attract qualified tenants, and then they'll accept applications. And what they're supposed to do is capture all those applications, credit checks, background checks, employment references, character references, all of that good stuff. And they'll basically say, here are all the applicants. Here's who I recommend that you choose, right? They're also there to help you choose pricing on what you should potentially charge for fair market rent. And then they'll also keep you updated with any maintenance or expense reports. Property managers in our area charge anywhere from 8 to 12%. I've actually even seen property management companies that charge flat fees, which is a really interesting, like, new concept for property management, but they just do like the bare minimum. It's kind of interesting. They'll just basically say, they'll just be like the middleman, the in-between communication person. So the most important thing with property managers is when you're looking to hire one is interview a couple. And also, if the property is not rented out, you always want to know that they're not also charging you for vacant property. So basically, you should only hire a property management company if they're doing their job and collecting rent. If they're not collecting rent, then they should not be getting paid. And then if you're managing the property yourself, a really, really amazing resource is cozy.co. We've actually been using this back at our very, very first property that we house hacked. That's when we started using this. I think it was like 5 years ago. We were renting property just to military. It was actually Marines. And we were renting the basement to a Marine couple. And we used Cozy. We set it up. Cozy is really cool. It actually doesn't cost you any money. Okay. And what you can do is collect credit checks. You could collect criminal and background checks. And you can also see their history, the rental history. The person that applies has to submit like who's moving in, how old they are, their ID. They have to put in employee references. They have to put in character references. They have to put who their old landlord is. So it's like a full out application. Now it does cost the tenant, I think, $39 or $49 to apply, which is absolutely average. That's normal. Right now, if you want to submit an application for a rental property, that's typically what you're going to pay to process your application. And you as the landlord, you don't have to pay anything, right? When you upload your property on Cozy, it also gets thrown across like Zillow.com, apartments.com, like any other of those websites that basically people go to rent property. And the really cool thing is that you collect payments through this, right? So what happens is you set up the lease. They basically link their bank account, and you, as the landlord, link your bank account. They make the payment, pretty much set it up for automatic payments, shows up a couple days later in your bank account. And if for some reason it doesn't, they automatically charge that late fee that you set. And then it also collects security deposit. It's actually like an awesome system. The way that they make money is through the application fees, and they charge processing fees. I think it's like your normal ACH withdrawal fee. So it's super minimal. People, tenants love it because of the convenience, and you never have to talk to the tenant in order to collect payments. So that's what's really cool about cozy.co. Another resource, guys, is if you're looking for some of these deals, okay? If you're looking to basically get alerts for off-market properties, either for flipping or for rental properties, definitely go to www.21daysdeals.com. This is basically a link where we actually throw up all of our off-market properties. Basically, these are properties we are wholesaling, which is another investment strategy that you can also learn. Let's see, we've got a couple. Cozy is joiningapartments.com. Cool. Yeah. So definitely go here, fill out the form, and what'll happen is next time we post up a property that is, ready to acquire, then you'll get alerted right away. You'll get an email. So if you take a look at this property right here, top left at 160, we're actually going to analyze that deal. It's actually for sale right now. We're looking for a buyer. I think we might have, I don't know if our partners are actually getting it under contract as we speak, but that's a really good deal that I'll show you. Like this is how you analyze a rental property. So I know that, I think Sandy, you were talking about like how much money is necessary in order to purchase a property, right? So when it comes to the traditional conventional loan, most banks want to see 20 to 25% down payment for an investment property, meaning that it's not your primary property and you're not going to live there. So basically, this is a property that you intend to purchase in order to rent out as an investment. So they're going to say, hey, if you're purchasing a property 100K, I want to see $25,000 as a down payment, right? The really, really cool thing is that you could purchase up to 10 properties and you get up to 10 loans, basically traditional bank loans under your name, right? So that's also something that's super cool. And like Faven and I have strategically not been on loans together so that each of us could have the opportunity to just get another loan in the future. So that's really cool. So conforming loans must usually be owned under personally, not an LLC or trust. It always depends on the actual bank and lender. And they, most of the time, they also, in addition to the 25% down payment, they normally want to see that you have like 6 months cash cushion. So if your mortgage payment was $1,000, they would say, hey, I want you to bring $25,000, which is a 25% to the table. And I want to see an extra 6K because your mortgage payment's $1,000 in your bank account sitting there as reserves, as an extra security blanket for that bank. And if you are looking to refinance a rental property, most of the time, the highest that they'll refinance is 70%, right? So this is basically, these are considerations when it comes to the traditional methods of getting properties. Now, I'll talk to you guys really quick about that one property that we ended up purchasing with pretty much 10K all in, right? So I know that at the very beginning of this, for those of you that are joining us later, I was actually telling Sandy that we got into a property with $10,000 all in, basically, into a rental property, which is crazy, right? So I'll tell you guys the story. we purchased a fixer upper. And at that time, we actually did buy this property off the MLS, but it was a couple years ago, maybe like 3 years ago. And that was like back when you could possibly still find rental properties, or I guess deals off the MLS. Right now, it's super impossible. It's just hard. So what we ended up doing is we bought the property with hard money. Okay. So those of you that are on what in the world is hard money, can anyone spit out like a definition of hard money? I just want to see what we're no comments yet. So tell me, go ahead and throw in what you think hard money is. Okay. So hard money is a really cool real estate investing tool. This is actually how we got started. If we didn't have hard money as an option to invest, we would have it probably would have taken us like 4 years to get started in acquiring property. But hard money basically lends you the money to not just purchase the property, but also to purchase and renovate the property. So if I say I'm going to buy a property at 100 and it needs $25,000 to be renovated and updated, the hard money lender will give me that money, right, to purchase it. Now, the cool thing about hard money is that it's it's short-term loans. Obviously, it's meant for you to renovate and sell, but they're interest only. They're 6 months, and they pretty much just rely on the deal. So in other words, you don't have to have fantastic credit. You don't actually submit any personal income documents. Pretty much a hard money lender wants to make sure that that deal makes sense. And then that's where they'll say, yes, I'll lend, or no. Obviously, better credit is more attractive to that hard money lender, and you'll get better terms. But we purchased this property with hard money. So we bought the property at 130,000. And I think that we brought around $30,000 to close, to buy the property, cash to close, right? So we basically purchased it at 130, and we also borrowed an extra $30,000 to renovate it. So all in, like total money all in, including our cash to close, was $160,000, right? We renovated the property, and I think it took us like 2 or 3 months. And then we said, hey, we're gonna go ahead and rent this out. And we found a renter to rent it out for $1,750. Okay. And then after the property was renovated, and after we had a couple months of a renter in there collecting income, we went to the bank and we said, hey, we want to refinance this property. Because remember, the hard money loan is only 6 months loan. So my time was running up. And so I said, all right, I'm going to convert this into a long-term 30-year mortgage. And so when we refinanced it, we actually refinanced it for like 200K or 205, I can't remember. And so what we ended up doing is pulling out, I think at that time, oh yeah, I remember what happened. So at that time, COVID, the COVID world and the stay-at-home order had just kicked into place. So we were about to get funded. And then the lender was like, we're gonna have to delay this another month because we don't know exactly what's happening. And so it was like really bad. And then a month later, when they finally decided that they would refinance it, they said, hey, we can't give you the cash anymore. You can pay off stuff, you can use the equity, we could do a refinance, but I can't give you cash anymore. So I pretty much we had to pay off, like, I think at that time we had like a car note and things like that. So we basically pulled out almost, I think it was like I think it was $20,000, where previously it would have been 40K, but this is even worst case scenario. It still worked out magically for us. So remember, we came to the table with $30,000. We refinanced it, and we pretty much pulled out around 20K out of it, right? So pretty much the only amount of my money that stayed stuck in the property was $10,000. The beautiful thing is that my new loan amount was 200, and the property actually had appraised for 280. So we had like 80K of equity. we had only gone into a property with $10,000 all in. And then we also had cash flow of over $500 a month, because I think the monthly payment ended up being like 1,200 or 1,100, something like that. So that's the story of how we got into a rental property with just $10,000 into it. So yeah, so that's basically what we did. That's called the BRRRR strategy. So yeah. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna get back into the slides here. So has anyone else that's on, has anyone else done a deal very similar to what I was like recently describing? I'm just curious if anyone has actually done something like that. All right, let's jump back into this. All right, so the next thing I wanted to do is, so remember I told you guys we have this deal right now that that's basically available to purchase. So basically, I wanted to analyze that deal and just figure out whether that's a good deal or not, whether this is a deal that, you want to go into and flip, or if this is a good rental property, right? So let's jump into it. So right before we jump into whether this is a good deal or not, I want to give you my super secret, juicy, recession-proof formula when it comes to analyzing a deal. So as an investor, take a screenshot of this or take a picture of this formula. If the property meets this criteria, it's an absolutely good property to purchase. Okay. If it doesn't meet this criteria, then I wouldn't even consider it. This is basically what we do to analyze whether or not we want to buy a rental property. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. So basically, what you want to do is take fair market rent. So fair market rent is basically what the property can potentially rent out for. Okay. So this is basically what are other rental properties in my neighborhood renting out for at the moment. What can I collect if I were to put this property up on the market, right? So you're going to take fair market rent, and then what you're going to do is subtract the mortgage, okay? And then once you subtract the mortgage, then what you're going to do is subtract the HOA or condo fee if it has one. And then you're going to subtract 7% of the fair market rent just in case this property is ever vacant, right? Because we have turnovers. When someone moves out, it might take you 2 weeks, a month to clean it up and re-rent it, right? And get somebody else to move in. So we're going to go ahead and throw in that cushion of 7% vacancy, right? Then you're going to subtract 7% for property management, just in case you have to pay a property manager, okay? Then you're going to subtract 7% for maintenance, because every once in a while something breaks down and you have to fix it. So at the end of that formula, if you were to go in and basically subtract all of these things, mortgage, HOA, vacancy, property management, and maintenance, and if you're still making $200 at the end of that, it's a good deal. It's a good deal. Because what you've done is you've basically said, hey, I'm going to make $200 no matter what. If I ever have it vacant, if I have to pay a property manager, and if I have to, pay for something that breaks down, right? Does that make sense, guys? Let me know if you're following me here. Let's see. Just go ahead and comment if you guys are following. All right, cool. So I just jumped onto Facebook, and I want to answer some questions before I jump into this. So what do you have to qualify for, or what is required in order to qualify for hard money, right? So hard money is like I was talking about earlier, is an awesome tool. So basically, you need to have a couple of things. Actually, you know what, guys? Let me pull this up. All right, I'm going to share the screen just to answer this question with you guys. Ooh, it's over here. All right, give me a second. I'm gonna pull this over. And that's a really good question because I feel like you can get into a rental property quicker going this route than you can through traditional financing. So with the hard money checklist, this is what you need if you want to get a hard money deal. First of all, obviously, basic criteria, property address, what you're going to purchase it for, and how much you think that you're going to spend on renovations, right? That's the first thing that you need. Okay. Then after that, you're going to need the after repair value because the hard money lender is going to say, hey, how much do you think that you could actually sell this for? Right? After you're done with renovations, right? So basically, you're going to need the after repair value. Then number 3 is obviously the scope of work. The scope of work is a list of things that you intend to renovate. You're basically saying, hey, Mr. Lender, I think it's going to be worth this much because I'm going to do this. I'm going to rehab the kitchen. I'm going to gut the bathrooms. I'm going to replace floors. I'm going to paint, like all of that stuff, right? They want to know what you're going to do to it to verify and validate that it's actually going to be worth that after repair value that you think it's going to be worth, right? And then basically, they also want to see you have the cash to close. At the very beginning, you might still have to come up with 20% or 15% of the total loan amount, but this has been the hard money loan is beneficial because you're not just getting a loan to purchase a property, you're getting a loan plus the renovation money. You're getting a loan to purchase the property plus the renovation money, right? So that's where you're going to have to show that either through a bank letter, a bank basically saying, hey, this person has this much money, a bank statement, business, they'll use business account statements as well. Anything that's in your stock or retirement accounts, you just got to show them, hey, I have the ability to liquidate cash so that I can close on the property. And they absolutely want to know like how long you want the loan for and the closing date. Like, when do I need to have this money set aside for you? So let's see. I know that I'm getting a lot of alerts here on the chat. Let me just make sure. Oh yeah, okay. So this PDF right here, guys, I'll show you where exactly to actually locate it. I've actually been trying to develop these resources because everyone is always asking these questions. So there's a website that I want you guys to to save, and it's called resources.snackonsuccess.com. Okay. And basically I have everything. That guide that I just showed you, it's the free hard money checklist. It's right here. Okay. That scope of work, basically a Google sheet. If you ever want to develop your own scope of work, just a budget, like different parts of a renovation or, different aspects, or pretty much if your lender asks you to submit a scope of work and you submit the spreadsheet, they'll think you're super organized. Which you should be doing right now if you want to invest, right? I mean, I've got tons of different resources here for you, but this is where that PDF is that I just went through. If you're looking to do that, you just click on that button and it'll take you to the hard money checklist right there. So yeah, so that's basically there for you. Now I'm going to jump back into this because that was a super, super important question. I think it's actually a topic that needs to be talked about all the stinking time as an investor, because I think that if it really came down to it and I had like 500K sitting in my bank account, then at that point, maybe I'd consider funding the entire deal myself. But I think I still may consider using a hard money loan, right? Because it's all about, or I guess the way that I analyze a deal is cash on cash return, right? I'd rather put, 50K into a property and make, 20K than to put 200K into a property and make 20K, right? My cash on cash return is so much higher. So let's go back to the secret formula, okay? This right here is gold. Again, take a picture, a screenshot, whatever it is that you need to do. Okay. This is your formula, your secret saucy formula for just investing in a good rental property. All right, so we're going to analyze that deal that we have for sale right now. We have a condo townhouse in Fort Washington, right? Like 2 minutes away from the highway, traffic light off of 210, and right next to the MGM. And the first thing that we're going to figure out, right, is that we're going to figure out two things: fair market rent and what the potential mortgage payment's going to be on this. Okay. So if you take a look at the screenshot, I went into Zillow mortgage calculator and I said, all right, if I were to purchase this property at 160K, okay, and I were to put 20% down on this, okay, at an interest rate of 3, which that probably needs to be 4%, because it's not going to be a primary residence. And with taxes and insurance and HOA dues, the mortgage payment would be $1,193. So if you take a look here, let me just do the Zillow. Oh, I lost it. So I actually put, if you subtract the 270, it's actually $900, right? So that's the first slide. Let's just figure out what that potential mortgage payment's going to be. Okay. And then the second thing that you have to figure out is what this property could potentially rent out for. So if you take a look here, we have a property that rented out for $2,250. Okay. That was 3 bedrooms, very similar to the property that we have under contract. Then we have one at $2,175 with 4 bedrooms, right? Then we have one at $2,000 with 3 bedrooms, okay? So basically, if we went and plugged all of this into that secret, juicy, recession-proof formula, we're basically going to say, all right, I know that I could rent this out for $2,200. I know the mortgage is going to be $923 plus the HOA, which is this number right here, $1,193. I know that I'm going to subtract $154 just in case this property, I ever have turnover and it goes vacant. And I'm going to subtract another 7% in case I have to hire a property manager. And I'm going to also subtract 7% just in case I have to, fix something up. With this specific property that we have available for you to buy, if you wanted this rental property, you would have potential cash flow of $545. So if it's over $200 a month after you take away all of this good stuff, it means it's a really good deal. It means that if that property ever goes vacant, if you ever end up having to hire somebody else to manage it, or if something breaks or fit or something like that, it'll definitely be worth it. You're still going to be making some money, right? So if you take a look at it, the cash flow is actually a little bit higher. But if you take a look at my 7% vacancy, 7% property management, 7% maintenance, like I threw in almost $450 in there of just safety cushion, like a safety net, right? So that's kind of what will give me the green light to purchase this property. So a couple final thoughts here, right? Owning individual properties as rentals is pretty much a long game. It sucks because it takes a really long time. And it's basically accumulating assets and you're having someone else pay down your debts. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Grant Cardone. A lot of people don't like his style because he's just so like out in your face, like go hustle, all of that stuff. But one thing that I absolutely love from him, and I think it's actually one of his like affirmations that he says every single day, is I only have debt that is paid for by others. So he's not about having debt that he has to pay for. His game is only having debts that are paid for by others. And that's exactly what a rental property is. Somebody else is there and pretty much paying down that balance and building equity for you over time. So typically, that's the way that we like to think. I love that affirmation or whatever the goal, the motto that he talks about. Let me just see. Yeah. So guys, what questions do you have if you have any questions? go ahead and post it in the chat box or in the questions part. Yeah, be obsessed or be average. So I've had people that like absolutely like hate him, but anytime I ever need like in your face, get to work, like, shut up and get things done, I listen to Grant Cardone. There's some things that I don't agree with him, but I just love that part. So what does this mean? Buying rentals at 100 times the rent. So there is a formula that basically says that whatever the fair market rent is, that you should be purchasing that property at 100 times or multiply it by 100 times. So for example, if a property is basically, let's just say I'm only collecting $1,000 a month, what I would do is multiply $1,000 by 100, which means that I should only be purchasing that property at 100K. So that's what that means. So if you know that you're collecting 2,200 a month, then you should only be purchasing that property at 220,000. And I kind of skipped over that because it doesn't exist in this market. It might exist in the maybe Midwest or just lower average sales price areas, but it just doesn't exist in Northern Virginia. It's actually, or DMV area at all. So that's what that means. Does anyone else have any other questions? Just want to say thanks. So for us, we went through a phase where we just kept flipping properties. And yeah, just kind of, we realized, after like 1 year of having to pay like a lot of taxes that actually this was really recent. Like we realized like, all right, we need to be a little bit smarter with this. Rental properties also give you like really, really huge tax benefits as well. Is it better to flip first than buy and hold? That is such a good question. All right, so that is also a loaded question. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about how we started. So when we first got started out, I didn't have the experience to just straight up do a BRRRR strategy, like right off as my first property. I didn't know enough, and we also, I guess, weren't confident enough to actually do that. At the time when we first started actually investing like that, one thing that held us back was we did not have 2 years of consistent self-employment income because I'm a realtor, right? So we get paid off of commissions, and they calculate that very differently on loans. So so basically when we first started out, all we could do really was get hard money loans because we didn't have a bunch of cash. And that was really our way of building up our cash reserves fast. So I really do believe like when you're first starting out, you should get a couple flips in. Like if I had 40K or 50K, I'd go in and do a quick flip and turn that into like 70K. And I'd go in and do another one and turn that into like 90K. And then once you have like that good enough cushion, then you can start getting into those buy and holds, because when you go and you only have 50K, like you've got your life savings, 50K, and you throw it right into a long-term buy and hold, it stays there. It's stuck there. And then that money is sitting there. And for me, that's like, oh, it's like an opportunity cost. Like if I have 50K sitting there, I could have turned that 50K into 90K versus turning that 50K into something that was going to be like stuck there for a long time. Now, we are getting into buy and holds right now, or this year has mainly been focused on properties that we're keeping. And that's because we did a lot of flips, our cash reserves increased, and now we can do that, right? So that's what I think, Sandy. If you're like looking at both scenarios, if you're first starting out, I would say get a couple flips in so you could just build that cash cushion and get cash heavy. And then go into buy and holds. But if you're sitting on a lot of cash and you're like, you're kind of like thinking, look, I don't got time for flips. Like I can't be managing 20 different contractors and making runs to do materials. And I've never, I don't even know what to pick as far as design. Then the investing strategy for you is probably buy and hold. And you're probably happy, as long as you've got your funds sitting in a solid asset, right? So that's what I think. What are your thoughts on house hacking by living on the property for 1 year to save on the down payment versus BRRRR? All right, so you kind of have to do BRRRR if you're house hacking. Um, it's kind of I feel like it's kind of the same thing. So you're purchasing a property, um, and you're either purchasing it through traditional financing or hard money. And then what you're doing is renting out a portion of that property to cover your mortgage payment or to cover the cost of that property. So I'll tell you about our very first deal. We bought a property that was a for sale by owner in Fort Washington. And the really cool thing is that he was kind of already starting to turn that property into 2 units because he had actually placed a washer dryer in the basement and had one upstairs. He had turned the coat closet, into a stackable washer and dryer. And then he actually owned an HVAC company. So he had stuck in a second HVAC unit for the downstairs so that the basement apartment could control their own, air and everything. But the entire basement had water damage. So we didn't know if like the sewer had backed up. We didn't know if it was like something behind the walls. Like we had no idea, but we're like, yes, this is a deal for us. We don't care what we do. We're just getting into a property. So we bought the property. I think we threw in like 40K into it. I convinced at that time I didn't have 2 years of income of self-employment income. So I convinced my mom to help me refinance it. So my mom had, that W-2 salary and everything. So it's always good to partner up with people that have like that stable income that want to invest. But I was like, I convinced her to take out a 30-year note on it, or pretty much refinance out of the hard money loan. And I think we owed like 170 on the property, and our mortgage was like, I don't know, like 1100 or 1200 or something like that. And we rented out the basement for 1350. And it was a 2 bedroom. It was kind of like a pretty remodeled basement. And we lived there for a little bit over a year. And the upstairs was also a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom with the kitchen, and the whole thing was completely remodeled. And then the market got crazy, and we went and we're like, oh my God, we have to take advantage of this. And we ended up selling it for 300. But we lived there for almost a year and a half, 2 years, I think, rent free. Yeah. So if you can do that, do it. Now, would I do that right now? No, because I've got kids now. It's a completely different thing. We didn't have any kids at that time, so it was very like easy to do. I would probably like drive tenants crazy if they lived with us right now. So yeah, awesome guys. So thank you for all the questions, and thank you so much for joining all the questions on Facebook. I absolutely appreciate you guys. And reach out anytime. I'm like, I wish I could do drinks. Right now I'm doing a challenge, so it's like mainly coffee dates for me. But if anyone's interested in going out and getting their coffee fix on, let me know. I definitely want to connect. And then again, guys, let me get that link for you. I definitely want you guys to save this link because it is where I've put in a lot of resources for everybody. So definitely save that link, download whatever guides you need to. If you guys have any questions about that, anything that I have up there, let me know. And have a good night. See ya. Woohoo!